Okay, so today it is finally here. It has been 1 year to the day since I did my most anticipated new releases video for 2021. I have now read all of the books that I was most eagerly anticipating, and today we are going to go back in time. We're going to go back and forward, past and present, to see how I feel about them now. Was I really excited about them then? Did they really let me down now? Was I really excited about them then and they were even better than I thought? Who knows? We will not know until we get to the end of the video, but let me tell you, there are going to be some surprises in store. I will warn you, this video might be a little bit longer than my usual ones, but that's because I don't want to cut too much out of it. I feel that the past video is very much going to fuel this video because I need to see what my reactions were in full to be able to respond to them. So I apologize about the length of the video, but if you're in for a really good time or you're happy to watch it in shifts or whatever, then let's just go ahead and do this, shall we? Let's go back in time and look at the first book that I was most eagerly anticipating that was a new release for 2021. The first book that I'm mostly anticipating for the new release of 2021 is The Woman Outside My Door by Rachel Ryan. A thriller mystery book, and oh my goodness, the premise just sounds amazing. So the basic premise of this book is that we are following a mother and her young child, and her young child has this imaginary friend. The mother starts to get a little bit suspicious about the imaginary friend, and then certain things come to life, making the mother ponder if the imaginary friend is more than just that. That is more than enough to get me excited. I love really good thriller mystery books that, especially when they come together for the big reveal, have a really good reveal. But even just the setup of this book sounds really amazing. So, highly anticipating this one. The Woman Outside My Door by Rachel Ryan. Okay, first things first, you guys. I showed the image of this edition in that video because prior to the book being released, so this was released in January, in December, this was the cover that was meant to come out. Then once the book was released, it was, as always, released into a UK and a US edition, and the UK edition was just a door on the cover, and it really disappointed me. But I tracked down the US edition because I love this cover. Like, having her eye just peer out through the black leaves. Oh my gosh, for a thriller, this is a great cover. And the book was just as fantastic as I thought it would be. This mother trying to work out what's going on with her child. You guys, this was so good. I remember doing my review for this book and saying that this is the best thriller I have read because Rachel Ryan ticked every single box for me when it comes to a thriller. You want a great mystery, you want great clues, you want an amazing reveal. Oh my gosh, this was just everything that I wanted and more. Mwah. Chef kiss. The Woman Outside My Door is Rachel Ryan's first ever book that she has written, and best believe I am eagerly anticipating her second one. I found no fault with this at all. I loved this book from start to end, and so I was right, and I highly recommend it. Let's move forward now. The Gilded Ones by Namina Forna. Now, this book sounds really incredible. It is a young adult fantasy that revolves around a girl who is about to go to a testing ceremony. I mean, I love all these like ceremonial test things that we can get in fantasies or dystopians, so that already has me excited. But they need to test the blood of, I believe, at least the women of this village, and if their blood runs red, then they are allowed to remain in the village. If it runs another colour, then they are going to be executed. So our protagonist gets to her test and her blood runs gold. Fearing for her life and not knowing what to do, a woman ends up approaching her and telling her that she has another option. She can stay here and get executed, or come away with her, where she has built this all-female army of people who are near immortal, women who are near immortal who have magical abilities. If that's what this book is going to do, or even if it's just going to have an all-women army, I'm really excited to read this, because the majority of my fantasies that I've read usually either revolve around an all-male army or a male-predominant army, so I'm really excited about this. Yeah, The Gilded Ones by Namina Fauna. Read it. Gave it 2 stars. Okay, I was so excited to go into this one, and I cut down my past video because it went on way too long, but you guys, the idea of reading a fantasy that revolves around an army, that is an army of all women, excited me so much, because all the fantasies that I read that revolve around armies or crews or whatever were predominantly or all exclusively male. So that really excited me. The book was such a letdown for me. I mean, you're going to get my unfiltered opinions here, and we're starting with The Gilded Ones. I believe that this book has been incorrectly marketed for its genre. This is marketed as a YA, I believe it's YA, but it's marketed in any case as a fantasy, and I don't get that. It is definitely a low fantasy in that there's not a lot of fantastical things that happen along the way. It takes forever for us to work out the fantastical side of things when it comes to what the army is trying to do. So that really let me down. Also, the book just let me down in general. If I strip back all the layers, and if this was seen as a contemporary, if it was marketed as a contemporary, I would have given it a higher rating, because I felt like the camaraderie between the circle of friends within the army that revolve around our main character, I loved the camaraderie between them, I did, but the book overall just really, really disappointed me. This book, Game Changers by Youll Take Me. Earlier this year, I read the Arc of a Side series, books 1, 2, and 3. I loved book 1, I liked book 2, book 3 incredibly disappointed me, but I really appreciated especially the way that that series began, and Youll Take Me once again is coming to us with what sounds like an amazing book. I don't know if it's part of a series or if it is going to be a standalone, but the premise sounds amazing. Basically, we are following a footballer, I believe, some kind of sportsman who gets knocked out and then ends up in a different dimension, and throughout the book he travels through many different dimensions. Dimensional traveling is something that I've always loved the idea of, but I haven't read it yet, so I'm incredibly excited to get to this book as well. Game Changer by Youll Take Me. Okay, I have a stack of papers on me right now. This is my printout editions of my stats that I put on the screen when I do my monthly wrap. And I read this book in April. Where I have the list of the books that I've read, I have started implementing little comments in there. And I have a comment about this book. And my comment for Game Changer is, can't give it any higher praise. I loved this book. Ending could have been better, but I can't go lower than 5 stars. Yeah, so I was absolutely right with my prediction of this book. It was fantastic, but I must stress that, as you saw in my past video, as you saw with my thoughts pre-reading the book, I was going into this book because of the fact that it revolves around a main character who goes into multiple alternate realities. There have been complaints made about this book. So what I'm going to say to you is this. If you go into this book looking for a multiple alternate reality adventure, you are going to love this book. If you go into this book wanting to get into multiple alternate realities and then take the time to deal with whatever issue might come up that is a bigger issue outside of the book in real life, you may not like that, because Youll Take Me, it's a sci-fi book. He skims over little issues that our character comes into, so I will say that. But I went into it for the alternate realities and I had a blast with it. So I was absolutely right with this one. 5 stars. It's a YA sci-fi. I highly recommend it. The next book that I'm eagerly anticipating in 2021 is a book called The Echo Wife by Sarah Gailey. So this book sounds really intriguing. It is a sci-fi book, and it is set in a world where we have this wife who is extremely intelligent, so intelligent that she builds an absolute replica of herself with all of the abilities, attributes, things that the human, the original, refuses to do. She then finds out that her husband is actually cheating on her with her replica. So, time to go and deal with this. This sounds really amazing. The Echo Wife by Sarah Gailey. First of all, I need to mention the edition, because we had the same deal. When, prior to the book being released, this was the cover that I saw on the screen when I was looking up these books. Then, when it was released with a cover that couldn't look any more different, you guys. It's like a summer's day, and there are two women on banana lounges relaxing, completely different to this book. I searched so much. I searched heaven and high water, basically, to find this. And eventually, I came across it on eBay. I assumed that maybe this book was an ARC that was given to someone who didn't like it, but either way, I wanted this edition. So after searching and paying more money than I needed to, because this was the edition I wanted, I DNF'd this book. So, going back to my little notes that I made when I DNF'd it, this was in August. I said, I got up to page 147 out of 256, so I got pretty far in. Way too much exposition, telling rather than showing. Yeah, I'm not a fan of that. Anytime I'm reading a book where the author is literally telling me what's going on as opposed to showing me by just having characters interact and I pick things up for myself, I don't like that. And there was a ton of exposition in this book. I DNF'd it, as I said, about the halfway mark. I said at the time, and I remember this, funny enough, because it was months ago, that I would be happy to re-pick it up at some point in the future and continue on from the halfway mark. And I don't see how that would be an issue with me. I remember exactly where I got up to. But at the same time, I have so many other books that I want to read that I probably won't. It just let me down. Way too much exposition. And also, I thought that this book was going to revolve around the main character having created this... replica for her husband, to see if he would cheat on her or whatever. Yeah, nah. The book opens up with the replica already created. The cheating has already happened. The replica's living with the husband. It threw me for a loop reading the first page. I'm thinking, hang on, wait. What am I missing? So, yeah, all kinds of no from me. The next book that I'm really eagerly anticipated is The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. Now, this is a historical fiction. What's that, Mr. Francy? A historical fiction? Surely I've heard you wrong. Nay, sir. I'm actually really intrigued about this book, and I know that all year this year I've been saying I don't like historical fiction. Then I read The Shadow of the Wind by Carlos Ruiz Zafón and said I don't like historical fiction unless it's written by Carlos Ruiz Zafón. But this book sounds... oh my gosh, like such a tantalizing read for me. So this book revolves around a woman. She opens up an apothecary and becomes well known, I assume, among women for selling poisons to women of abusive husbands as a way to get back at them, potentially a way to kill them. This to me sounds so good. I have read books in 2020 that did revolve around abuse, whether it was domestic or relationship abuse, and this to me is always a tough subject to read, but I love the setup for this book. A woman who has literally opened her store to say, hey, is your husband abusing you? Come by my little apothecary and we'll cook up something for you so you can poison them and get your revenge. This just sounds like it's right up my alley, despite the fact that it's historical fiction. The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. Now for a moment's silence while we really appreciate the detail of this edition and how gorgeous it is. Oh my gosh, you guys. This is another book where I saw the edition and couldn't find it after it was released. So, I went to so many bookstores asking about my most anticipated new releases, and it always seemed to be the same thing. Each store carried a certain amount of books, but they all carried the same books. But the books they didn't carry, they all didn't carry those books as well. Okay, anyway. So, I went into my favorite bookstore and asked about this one. I have a number of bookstores I go to, but I went to my favorite one and spoke to the lady there, and I said, oh, I really want to read this. And she's looking it up. She goes, oh, I love the cover. I said, I know, it's part of the reason I want to read it. The cover's so beautiful. And she said that she can get it for me, but it won't be this edition. Oh, you guys. Mr. Francy did a ton of groundwork because I was determined to get this edition. And I finally found it. I don't even know how or where I found the edition, but I found it. And you know what? It was worth it because I gave this book 4.5 stars. It is exactly what the premise says it is going to be. We're following a woman who creates potions, potions basically, little potion bottles of medicine or poison to poison terrible men. I loved it. It was exactly what I wanted. I struggled physically reading it, but after I read the first chapter, I switched to audio and had a much easier time. It was fantastic. And all of my, oh, it's historical fiction. What's that, Mr. Francy? You're going to read historical fiction. You don't like historical fiction. I loved this. So maybe it's not that I don't like historical fiction. Maybe it's just that I haven't come across many amazing historical fictions. But this was fantastic. The next book I'm incredibly excited to read is a book called The Little French Bridal Shop by Jennifer Dupuis. This book sounds just like it's going to be so much fun to read. So basically this book revolves around a woman who goes back home to help her ailing mother, and while she's touring around, she walks past a bridal shop and there is a dress that she sees that she likes the look of, so just for fun, she tries on this dress. Don't know if she ends up liking it or hating it. That's not the point. Because she tried on this dress, unbeknownst to her, everyone in the town is now planning her wedding. A wedding which doesn't even exist in the first place. For all we know, she doesn't even have a boyfriend, let alone a fiancé. But the whole town is coming together to plan this non-existent wedding, and it just sounds really like it's going to be a lot of fun. The Little French Bridal Shop by Jennifer Dupuis. Have you ever seen that clip from The Simpsons where Homer is in Moe's bar, Moe's Tavern, or he's somewhere about to have an alcoholic drink, and he goes, sounds delicious, and then he tries it and he goes, it's not. That's this book. I was so intrigued by this book, you guys. I know I'm getting passionate, but this is the last time I get to talk about this book. Well, until anyway. I was so intrigued by the premise of this book. That is not what this book is. That is not what this book is. This is a book about a woman who tells a lie and the lie goes out of control. And it has had, from what I've been told, terrible ratings on Goodreads. And I understand why. When you set someone up for a premise, you saw how excited I was in that past clip. I was so excited about this book. When you set readers up with a premise and say, this is what's going to go down, the reader goes into the book with that expectation. Okay, you haven't told me everything, but from what you've told me, this is what's going to go down. That is not how it was. How it was she goes into the bridal shop, tries on all the dresses, not just one, and then when the bridal shop person says to her, oh, when's the date? She says, oh, it's in June, even though she's not getting married. And then she tells everyone that she's getting married. So how is that a surprise that everyone's setting up her wedding when she's the one who came up with this lie and told everyone? Very disappointing. I DNF'd this book, and gosh, I miss those days when I was so excited for this, because I'm glad that's on video, because I was, and you can see I was so excited about this book. No, such a massive letdown. I almost want to return the book and get my money back and say, for false advertising reasons, you've given me a premise and that's not what happens. It's completely different. But I'll probably just unhaul it because, Moving on. The next book that really intrigues me is a book called The Memory Collectors by Kim Neville. What really intrigues me about this book, the premise was a little longer than I needed. What really intrigued me was just within the first line. We are following a protagonist who, just by touching objects, can feel the emotions from these objects, and I'm assuming that these emotions are left from the humans who had them in their possession to begin with. Apparently, the rest of the book revolves around her trying to set all these objects up in some kind of a museum, and she has a friend come in to help her. But what intrigues me is the fact that she can touch these objects and feel these emotions. I love this idea. I think it's a wonderful idea. The Memory Collectors by Kim Neville. Had no problems acquiring this edition. Okay, yeah, so the reason why I wanted to read this book was because I was so intrigued by the magic system, to be able to feel the emotions that are coming off of the objects. That, as you can see, that really fascinated me. No. I wish that this book had explored that what I'm going to call magic system a whole lot more than it did. Yes, it is explained that that is what we're doing. We're trying to sort out the emotions that radiate negative, the objects that radiate negative emotions versus the objects that radiate positive emotions, but we're not really going into a lot of detail, and that's how I would have gone. And I'm not saying that Kim Neville has to write the book that I want to write, but that's what I was thinking going into this book, that we would have a ton of information about the magic system, moments where our character would hold an object and go, ooh, there's some angry emotions coming off of here. Let's see what else we can feel about the object. No, not at all. It is literally, okay, this has negative emotions, so we're going to put on this side. This has positive emotions, so we'll put on this side. The beginning, the first half, was really slow. The ending, the final quarter of the book, was fantastic. I don't know where it came from, because, as I said, the first half of the book was so slow that for the conclusion, the climax, really felt like it came out of the blue. So I was thinking of giving it 2 stars, but the climax put it over the edge and I gave it 3.5. Yeah. Overall, I'll say that I was disappointed, considering why I went into the book. I was disappointed when I had read it. The next book that really intrigues me is a book called Every Vow You Break by Peter Swanson. So this is a mystery thriller book that revolves around a wife that runs into a man that she had an affair with on her wedding night. That's all the premise that we're given, but with mysteries and thrillers, you really don't want to know too much, but this intrigues me enough. Like, is there going to be some comeuppance? If there's a murder in this book, who gets killed? Like, this just has the potential to have so much drama, and let's be real, you can read books that are really boring, that really don't have any drama at all, but this sounds like it's going to have so much drama in it that I am totally on board. If there are deaths involved, I'm even more on board. So much drama, it's going to be amazing, so much drama. No. No. This book taught me a very valuable lesson. That Peter Swanson is an not by author for me, and I will not read any more of his works, despite the fact this is the only book of his I've read. I automatically don't trust him. So for those of you who don't know, an by author is when you have an author you love, the moment they release a book, you're automatically going to buy it because you love that author. Obviously, not by is the opposite. You really don't like the author, so once you see the author's name attached to the book, you go, no, I'm not buying this. That's Peter Swanson for me. This book let me down in so many ways. Okay, number 1. I kept talking in my December video about how I thought that there would be so much drama and it'd be action-packed and da-da-da-da. No, it wasn't. There was one moment that got really dramatic at the end of a chapter. We have, what can I say? We have a situation, I'm going to try and not spoil anything. We have a situation where we have victims that have been cornered, okay? So I'm not saying specifically what's going on, we just have victims that are cornered. And that's how the end of the chapter is. It's kind of the whole, oh my gosh, we were trapped, there was no way out. Then, at the beginning of the next chapter, these villains who have trapped the victims turn around and go, we're just kidding. Oh my gosh, we're totally kidding. Unbound them. I think they were bound up to chairs. Unbound them. Let them go. It's fine. We were seriously, can't you ladies take a joke? Like, seriously? Are you kidding me? That was the most dramatic thing that came up in the entire book. I was so let down by this book. I seriously, I was so let down. The next book that I'm kind of eagerly anticipating is a book called K10 Waiting. The reason why I'm kind of eagerly anticipating it is because once again, I read the premise and became really excited about it before I saw the author's name that's attached to it. And the author who's written this book is none other than the potentially polarizing author from what I've seen, Becky Albertalli. So Becky Albertalli, from what I've seen with reviews and discussions that people have had, is a very, very, very polarizing author. There are readers out there who absolutely love her. There are readers out there who absolutely do not love her. So she's quite a controversial author. However, the premise of this book does sound really, really good, and oh my goodness. So basically we have these two best friends, a straight female and a gay male. These two friends one day come across this guy, this really attractive guy, and they both end up having a crush on him. And the tagline is basically, is this going to tear their friendship apart? How are they going to deal with this? And I just think this is going to be a wonderful topic to explore in the world of literature. Again, I did not notice that Becky Albertalli is the author until I had seen the premise and went, oh my god, I love the sound of this. So I'll see how I go with this one, but I just love this idea and yeah, really intrigued for it. K10 Waiting by Becky Albertalli. Okay, alright, let's deal with this. So, to unpack all of what I said, I had not read Becky Albertalli at all by the time I did that video. So I didn't know much personally about her books and what I thought about them, having not read any of them. But as I said, I had done some research into what others thought, and it seemed like she was a very polarizing author. Then, about halfway through the year, I read Love, Simon, and I gave it, I think, 3 stars. But this book, you guys, unlike Love, Simon, this book, K10 Waiting, was fantastic. I remember saying in my reading vlog, have you ever had a moment where you pick up a book and you're enjoying it, and then when you get to the final page and read it and close the book, when you say to yourself, this is exactly what I needed right now. That was K10 Waiting for me. I had read a couple of denser books, and I'm not saying dense as in I didn't like them, but dense as in I found them to be really dense to get through. And where this is light, easy, breezy, fun, this was fantastic. And I cannot recommend it enough. I cannot recommend this highly enough. I had a lot of fun. I may have gone into it thinking, oh, Becky Albertalli, I don't know. But I was excited about the book. And my excitement about the book remained all the way through to and including once I had finished reading it. As far as You'll Take Me by Phil Stamper. This is an LGBTIQ+ book, and it is the second book from the author of this book, The Gravity of Us. I read this book quite a number of months ago, and I loved this book so much and fell in love with this author so much, you guys. Here's how much. I originally borrowed The Gravity of Us from my local library, and I clung onto it until I became dangerously close to having to pay overdue fees while waiting for my own copy to appear. I have been displaying this book ever since I read it because of how much I love this book, and even though I've only read one book of his, and this is only because he's only published one book, I have grown to 100% trust Phil Stamper. So I do not want to read the premise of this book. I want to go in blind because I trust Phil Stamper. As Far as You'll Take Me is a book that I've been looking forward to ever since I found out that Phil Stamper is releasing another book. I'm incredibly excited about this one. As Far as You'll Take Me by Phil Stamper. Okay, yes, I'm also holding The Gravity of Us because I spoke about it in my last video. And yes, that absolutely is a true story. I mean, I'm a very transparent person anyway. There's no need for me to lie, but that is a very, very, very true story. I received my library's edition during lockdown because they were sending out books just during lockdown. They were like delivering them and whatever. And the library edition of this book was in there. I read it. I loved it. I clung onto it until I was dangerously close to paying overdue fees. That is absolutely true while I was waiting for this book. So I did want to go into this book blind because I love this book so much that unlike Peter Swanson, Phil Stamper became an auto-buy author for me because I trusted him so much after this book. I wasn't let down. This was fantastic. It's not as lighthearted as The Gravity of Us. The Gravity of Us is much more lighthearted. Just very quickly, both of these are YA LGBTIQ plus books that deal with male social issues. So yeah, this one's a lot more lighthearted though than this one. This one tackles, it looks like such a bright, colourful book, and yet it gets dark in certain places. So do be mindful of that. One thing I can tell you that we deal with for sure is, is it bulimia? I think it's bulimia. And then there's another one like starving yourself or whatever. Anyway. I'm going to let that go. The book itself, though, however, was fantastic. Phil Stamper is definitely still an author for me. He has 2 books coming out in 2022 because why not? He released 1 book in 2020, 1 book in 2021, and 2 for 2022. And best believe I will be reading them. I love Phil Stamper. He is my second favourite male author of all time. You guys may not know this, but my favourite author of all time, you probably do know because I talk about it all the time, Brandon Sanderson. My second favourite male author of all time is Phil Stamper. Loved this. So happy I went in blind. The final book that I'm very eagerly anticipating, and just because it's last does certainly not mean that it is least, is this book, Nowhere, by Brandon Sanderson. This is the 3rd book in the Skyward series. I read Skyward quite a number of months ago, and I really enjoyed that book. I then read book number 2, and book number 2 allowed Brandon Sanderson to expand upon that world, and I'm really eagerly anticipating book number 3 to see how he ties everything together with the 3rd book. So we'll see how we go with that one. But I mean, it's Brandon Sanderson, so I am incredibly excited, of course. So I had the UK editions of Skyward and Starsight, which were the books that were available at the time that I was filming that video. The first 2 books in this Skyward series by Brandon Sanderson. The UK copies, I now have the US ones. I'm very happy about them. Skyward, Starsight. You guys have no idea, especially with this one, how happy I am to hold this book up when I talk about Skyward. It's the first time I'm talking about it outside of the book haul for a video, because I keep seeing booktubers hold up this beautiful purple book and I'm holding up some black covered book that really doesn't look inspiring at all. So I'm so happy to be holding this. But anyway, yeah, I've read book 1, I've read book 2. I planned to read, as I said, obviously, book number 3, but it didn't happen. I just ended up forgetting about that one, unfortunately, which book 3 is not called Nowhere. It was originally called Nowhere, then it was changed. So it ended up being called Cytonic. I am looking forward to reading it. I'm going to read it next year. I just ran out of time this year. Just quickly, I just checked the entire clip of my Nowhere, aka Cytonic, thoughts. I did say at the end of that clip, and if you want the original link so you can watch the whole thing, it's in the description below. I did say in that one that the release date for that book was the 11th of November. So it literally only came out less than 4 weeks ago. So no wonder I haven't read it yet. But I did actually originally plan to read it basically the moment it came out and got delivered to me. So I should have technically read it in the month of November, towards the end of November, but it just didn't happen. It'll happen sometime next year. But that is it. Those are all the books. I knew this would be a massive project. So if you have made it this far, thank you, because I know that this was an extremely long video compared to what I normally do. And if you have made this far, please leave some book emojis in the comments section below. But what were your thoughts on books that you were eagerly anticipating last year, whether they were new releases or not? In 2020, did you have thoughts about certain books you would read in 2021 with expectations? Did the books meet your expectations or not? Let me know in the comments below. But in the meantime, I think this is a great place to leave it. Thank you so much to all of you out there for your love and your support. This channel has nearly been going for 2 years. At the end of January, it will be my 2-year anniversary on BookTube. Woot woot! And some of you are doing some favors for me with regards to that. So we're going to do something special. Thank you if you are involved in that. Thank you very much. But I just want to say thank you to everyone for all of your support, because last year was very different, but this year has just been absolutely incredible. I've made some amazing friends. We have a wonderful family here at Mr. Francy Reads, and I feel like you know, for me, I have my wonderful family here at Mr. Francy Reads, and then I have the cousins that are like, you know, Books and Bobs and the Killing Time with Cozy's ladies and everyone else, I mean. And of course, yeah, I want to give a shout out to specifically to 2 subscribers who are on my Discord who don't have a booktube channel, Jane and Liam. Thank you very, very much for all of your support as well. This family is just amazing and it means the world to me, so thank you. All right, we are done. So in the meantime, that is where I am going to leave it, letting you guys go with peace, blessings, and so much love. I post videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 10 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time, and I'll see you again soon. Mwah! Thank you so much for watching, and of course, happy reading!